We are going to build a shopping list for the command line. We're going to get into how to implement the T.model interface so you can start building your own bubble tea models and applications. Here is what it looks like. We've got our little shopping list, and we can toggle each of the items that we might want on our shopping list, and also, of course, deselect them and then just hit Q to quit or Control C. We're going to go ahead and get that functionality going in some code right now. So here we've got our repo up, and right here in the tutorials folder is where you're going to be able to find this tutorial. So today we are just going to do the basics tutorial. I will also be doing a follow-up video where we will be following along with the commands tutorial. And the basics is just going to give you a rundown of what bubble tea is, a little bit about the Elm architecture, introducing you to its documentation that you can read and learn more about if you're interested. The Elm architecture isn't super natural feeling for Go developers, but I think that once you start using bubble tea, you'll start to see why it's actually really fun to use and how it can help you write your applications very quickly. So without further ado, let's get into building a shopping list, and let's create a new project. So let's go shopping list. Perfect. And then let's do a little go mod init shopping list. And let's touch main.go. Let me actually just move myself to the other side and flip. I have teleported. Yay. There, now I won't be in the way of the code. So let's go ahead and get started by editing our main.go. Obviously, you can use whatever editor you want. You do not have to be doing this from the terminal. And let's go ahead, declare package main, and let's get some imports going. So we are going to import FMT, we are going to import OS, and we're going to import bubble tea, of course. And then let's talk a little bit about the bubble tea model. So here you can see that we've basically, the bubble tea model is an interface that requires you to define some kind of functionality for an init, update, and view methods. So init is basically where you're going to run some command that's going to get called when the program starts up. So one common use case for this is, for example, if you want to start a timer right when the application starts, then you would include that tick message as what's getting returned in the init. You can also batch commands, which means that you can have multiple commands that fire off and are returned running in their own Go routine in your init. So you can look at t.batch for that. And then we'll talk about update. So update is something that your model also needs to implement. And basically this is where you're going to be adding the interactivity element to your TUI. So update is where you're going to be handling different messages. And if you'll see this a little bit more in our commands tutorial, but basically a t.message is any data type. You declare some type so that you can call whatever you'd like. For example, like a return message or something like that. And it can just be an int. And then what you do in your commands is that you actually just wrap the whatever you're returning in the corresponding message type that you've declared. And then from there, your update, you're actually going to be able to handle those messages and decide when this Go routine has completed, when this command has completed, then what are we going to do with that output? Sometimes you might actually just end up returning nil from your commands because you're like, I don't need to run anything after that. Or sometimes you might want to use that opportunity to update your UI in some way. So maybe if you have a viewport and you have text showing in that viewport, you might want to update the text that's being displayed and all of that stuff. So update is where you are going to be able to handle those events and respond accordingly. And then view is where you're basically creating the string representation of your TUI. So let's break the idea that a TUI is complicated. It's just text being displayed in your terminal. So that's what we're doing in Vue is you're able to leverage, if you have existing UI components, you can use their Vue method for like from our bubbles library, for example. Or if you just have text that you want to display, you can have a string value and literally just display that string, and that's fine too. And that's as simple as your Vue can be. And in your Vue, you can also have some different conditions and basically have it show different strings depending on certain conditions about the model or just about the state of the application in general. So that is the nitty-gritty of what those functions need to do. That might have been a little bit too complicated of an example for just getting into bubble tea, but bear with me. So let's go ahead and create our model. So let's hop back to the code. And here we're going to define our model. So we'll do a type model, which is a data structure. And in this data structure, we're going to have a few fields. We're going to have choices. We are going to have a cursor, which is how we're going to keep track of where we are in the list. And here we're going to have selected, which is basically just going to be a map that has some index and is just some data structure, some arbitrary data structure. And I'll add some comments for additional context. We always want to be able to initialize a model with some sane defaults. So this is how we're going to do it, is we're basically going to have an initial model function. And then here is where we're going to set those default values. So we can just return a model, and then we're going to add some choices. So what we can do is we can just have an array of strings, and we can just say, let's buy some carrots. We'll buy celery and buy kohlrabi. I have no idea what that is, but these all look like rabbit food. So I'm going to assume it follows that same theme. Okay, and then we are going to go ahead and initialize our map. So we'll just create a map, int, and then struct. There we go. So now we're initializing things. Don't worry that my editor just deleted our imports. It'll fix that later. And then let's start actually implementing the t.model interface. So we'll go ahead and create our init method and model init. And then this returns a t command. And in this case, we don't need anything to run on startup. So we're just going to go ahead and return nil. Easy peasy. Perfect, perfect. And then because it's yelling at me about not being able to import bubble tea, let's quickly adjust. I'm just going to close my editor and just do go mod tidy. And let's just open it back up. There we go. All right. Don't worry about any of this stuff being unused. My linter is just very picky. Very, very picky. So let's read through the docs a little bit more together. So next up is the update method. The update function is called when things happen. Its job is to look at what has happened and return an updated model in response. It can also return a command to make more things happen, but for now, don't worry about that part. In our case, when a user presses the down arrow, update's job is to notice that the down arrow was pressed and move the cursor accordingly, or not. The something happened comes in the form of a message, which can be any type. Messages are the result of some I/O that took place, such as a key press, timer tick, or response from a server. We usually figure out what type of message we received with a type switch, but you can also use a type assertion. For now, we'll just deal with a t.key messages, which are automatically sent to the update function when keys are pressed. So let's go ahead and implement that. Head on back to the code. All right, so func, let's define our update. There we go. And then we've got message, which is type t.message, not command, t.message. And then it returns a t.model. and a t.command. And then let's switch on the type of the message, because right now we're looking for when the message is of type t.keyMessage. So we'll do a quick little switcherooski. Message.type. And then let's do case t.keyMessage. Perfect. And then let's switch on the string value of the message. So we'll do switch message.string. And then now we can actually compare directly to strings of keys. So for example, but let's get our case for when we want to quit the application. So when Control and C are pressed, or when Q is pressed, we will go ahead and return m,t.quit. So we're actually going to quit our application. And for now, it's gonna yell at us about returning m, which is our model, because we haven't implemented view yet. So just ignore that for now, and we'll get there. We'll get there. And then the next one is let's move up. So how do we want to handle moving our cursor up? So we can either hit the up arrow or we can hit K. And then we are going to set, okay, if m.cursor is greater than 0, m.cursor minus. Perfect. And then we'll do something very, very similar for moving down. So let's say we want to hit down arrow or we want to hit J. Then we can go ahead and do if m.cursor is less than the length of m.choices -1. Okay. Then m.cursor ++. And then we also want to be able to select an item. So to do that, let's say we want to hit enter or space. So we'll give a case for enter, or it's equal to a literal space. We will check if it's already in the list of selected. So this was basically going to like toggle whether or not an item is selected. So we're going to check first if it is in the selected items. So we'll just do m.selected and then m.cursor and then if okay, so if it exists. If it found it, then we will delete m.selected at index m.cursor. Otherwise, let's add it to m.selected. Then it would be m.selected at index m.cursor. Yes, typing is hard. Is just an empty struct because we don't care. We don't care about that. And then finally, we will return m,nil because we don't really have anything else that needs to update. This is all that we're doing is handling these key messages and updating what is selected. So you might see on line 27 that we have this t.quit. So this is basically a built-in function for Bubble Tea that allows you to exit your Bubble Tea program. Next, let's get into view. So let's declare our function signature. And then let's pause for a moment so I can tell you about what view is, okay? Let's read it together. Switch back to the browser. All right. At last, it's time to render our UI. Of all the methods, the view is the simplest. We look at the model in its current state and use it to return a string. That string is our UI. Because the view describes the entire UI of your application, you don't need to worry about redrawing logic and stuff like that. Bubble Tea takes care of it for you. So basically what's happening is the view is going to get called after every call to update. So whenever any of your commands finishes, so once that go routine wraps up and it returns update and it calls it again, you will get a re-render. So there's never going to be a need to manually call view to trigger a re-render. It will happen whenever any of your commands finish up. So without further ado, let's start building it. we've got the code here. Let's hop over to the terminal and write it together. All right, so let's create a string. And we're just going to ask, what should we buy at the market? No. New lines. And then let's go through for I, comma choice in the range of m.choices. So we're going to iterate over the choices. Cursor is going to be empty if it's not the current index. So for now, the default is that the cursor is blank. It's a space. And then we're going to check if m.cursor is equal to I, then we're going to show a different cursor. So in this case, it's going to be a little arrow. I'll add the comments while we go. Okay, don't you worry. Don't you worry. I will add those comments. There we go. All right, and then the next part is let's check, is this choice selected? So we're gonna make checked empty by default. All right, and then we are going to do that same check that we did earlier by seeing if it exists in m.selected at the current index. And then let's change checked to X. There we go. Which means it is selected in that case. And then finally, let's render the row. So we are going to do S plus or equals sprintf. And again, it's just strings. It's just strings. So we're able to do that. Add a little new line in there. We'll add the cursor. We'll add whether or not it's checked. And we will add the choice. Perfect. And then last thing that we're going to do outside of that for loop is let's quickly just add a little info on how to quit the program. All right. Press Q to quit. And then finally, we will return S. Perfect. And one thing worth mentioning is that the view function is when you'll start to see more of lip gloss being used just to both style the text and create layouts. So not something that I'm going to cover in this video, but just a heads up of how some of our different libraries might tie together. This is where lip gloss would be used. And then finally, we're at the last step. If you've made it this far, good job. Participation medal for you. Okay? I'll send you stickers if you'd like. All right. P is equal to a new T program. So here, and then we'll initialize our model because that is what the T.new program needs, is a T.model. And now it shouldn't give us any errors because our model is actually now implemented init, update, and view. So we're good. We're good. And we'll check if error is equal to p.start. So we'll check if p.start has any issue running. And if error does not equal nil, panic. Not actually, though. We're printing. It's fine. And we're just going to say, alas, there's been an error. All right. Good enough. And then os.exit, and we'll give it a little general exit code. And so now you can see that my editor has brought back these imports that it deleted earlier. And let's go ahead and run it and let's see what it looks like. So I'll just clear all of that garbage. Let's run go run. What should we buy at the market? Let's see. Let's buy some kohlrabi because we're feeling adventurous. Let's buy carrots. And actually, no carrots. Let's get celery instead. And there you have it. You can select whatever items you'd like from the list and hit Q to quit. If I run it again, you can also hit Control C. We just did not include that little message in our view. So people don't know you can hit Control C, but they do know you can hit Q. So I hope that this was a helpful tutorial for you. I hope I didn't jump into the complexities of it a little too soon. I got a little eager. Don't mind me, okay? But I'm excited to also share with you our commands tutorial, which should help you a lot with just understanding messages, commands, how you can work in Bubble Tea, pass information, all of that powerful stuff that you need to be a 10x Bubble Tea developer, okay? That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, this is what we built, and good job, everyone. See you in the next video. Peace out.